Hello everybody and welcome to the latest Urban Living webinar. Today we have got a fantastic topic to discuss, and it's the role of the metaverse in hospitality and real estate. My name's George Sell. I'm Editor-in-Chief at International Hospitality Media, and we are a London-based publisher of B2B websites for the hospitality and real estate sectors, and we also organise conferences and award schemes. Now, today's webinar series is sponsored by Flywire and Charles Hope, and we're just going to find out a bit more about both of our sponsors. Firstly, Flywire, which is a payments solution company.
Flywire helps travel businesses reduce costs and improve guest experience when collecting payments. Without Flywire, travel payments can be costly and inefficient, requiring the business to work with multiple vendors like payment processors, merchant banks, and more. The process results in difficult manual reconciliation, high fees on both sides of the transaction, and no dedicated support for payers or merchants. We solve these pain points through our Flywire Advantage, the combination of our next-gen payment platform, our proprietary global payment network, and our travel-specific software, backed by our deep industry expertise, to improve both sides of the payment equation. Guests pay in their local currency and with their preferred payment method, whether it be credit card, local bank transfer, mobile wallets, or other local payment methods. Flywire leverages our significant scale to ensure travel businesses and guests alike enjoy low fees and competitive exchange rates. Businesses receive the exact amount that they bill in the currency of their choice for both domestic and international payments, all reconciled to the penny. If there are any questions along the way, Flywire's around-the-clock multilingual support and dedicated account managers are there to help. To learn more, visit travel.flywire.com and request a demo today.
Okay, so thanks to Flywire for sponsoring. You can see their details in the chat. There's going to be quite a lot of information posted in the chat today, so make sure you keep up on top of that. And interesting that one of our sponsors is a payments company, because that's a topic that we are going to definitely delve into during the session. Our other sponsor is Charles Hope, which is a UK-based service department operator. Charles Hope offers standard lease options, management contracts, and hybrid models to suit every level of investor and developer to maximize asset value and potential income streams. And you can see more details from Charles Hope in the chat if you'd like to find out more about them. So today's webinar is going to last an hour. We'd like to make it as interactive as possible. You can submit your questions using the Q&A or the chat in Zoom. I've got loads of questions about this topic. I have to admit that there's a lot about the metaverse that I'm not fully conversant with. So if you've got any questions, please do submit them using the chat and the Q&A as we go along. We'll get around to answering your questions for 10 minutes or so at the end of the session. And everybody who's registered for the session will receive a link to a recording via email in the next couple of days. So I just wanted to show some context slides just to briefly illustrate some of the topics we're going to be talking about in the next hour or so. So we've got NFTs, we've got blockchains, we've got metaverse experiences. There's one in the bottom right-hand corner from our Urban Living news site about a company called Scot, which has launched a co-living brand called Life, and they're going to be offering lots of co-living metaverse experience to their guests. We're also going to talk about the role of NFTs and cryptocurrencies in the hotel and travel world. And we're also going to talk about a topic which I find really intriguing and I definitely don't fully understand, and that is metaverse land and real estate. So buying and selling property that exists only in the metaverse. So loads to get stuck into. We have got a fantastic panel to share their insights with us today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in turn, and let's go from left to right as we see them on the slide. So Scott, hi to you. Thanks for coming on. Could you introduce yourself briefly and tell us what you do?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. So I'm the Managing Director for Pavilions Hotels and Resorts. We have 14 properties across Europe and Asia, and I'm based here in Asia where our head office is. And we're in the boutique luxury market. We also have a second brand that I operate, which is our new Explorer brand focused at the millennial market, which is expanding at the moment through Asia. And we are also targeting Mexico, the Caribbean, and have been one of the first international hotel groups to launch cryptocurrency as an option for our guests.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that shortly. Erin, thank you for coming on the session. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So my name is Erin Sykes. I'm with Nest Seekers International. We are a luxury real estate brokerage. We have 30 offices throughout the world. I work out of our Florida offices in Miami and Palm Beach, and also our New York City office. And my experience within this community is mainly through the Waldorf Astoria Residences, which is the first condo to accept, the first pre-construction condo to accept cryptocurrency for payment, and that's going up in downtown Miami. So we've really led the charge alongside the mayor of Miami to change the landscape of downtown particularly, and crypto has been a huge part of it. From there, we also jumped into Mexico, and we have some other pre-construction options there that are accepting cryptocurrency.
Thanks, Erin. And finally, James, welcome to you.
Hi, thanks, George. So my name's James. I'm the founder of Gecko Digital and Igoroom. So Gecko Digital is a content VR production company, and Igoroom is the first brainchild of Gecko Digital within our R&D outfit, which is the world's first online travel agent that uses virtual reality assets, and that quite an extensive library of VR that we have accrued over the last 10 years with Gecko Digital to represent hotels in APAC and the Indian Ocean, peddling itself as the world's first virtual reality empowered online travel agency. And we've just founded that under a holding company that we've incorporated here in Malaysia and moved down to Singapore, called Igotopia, so with Gecko Digital and Igoroom's wholly owned subsidiaries.
Great stuff. Thank you, James. Okay, let's talk about crypto payments initially. Scott, can you give us a bit of background as to why you decided to become one of the first hotel companies to accept crypto, and how you got the ball rolling?
Well, initially it was a bit of discussion about you know, who's using cryptocurrency. We had involvement in cryptocurrency personally, and then people were trading it, and people were buying items with it. So we weren't seeing it in the hotel sphere. A couple of hotels in America had done it, individual standalone hotels, but we hadn't seen any of the groups going into it. So that's where we looked at the opportunity to lead with in that sphere as a hotel group, offering it to our clients. We too also have a residential component in a number of our resorts where people can buy residences. So we felt it was an opportunity for people to use their currency in the travel industry. So we went out and searched out who were the merchants out there that we could work with, who would be able to process transactions across our whole group, being that we had hotels in Europe and Italy and Spain, etc., and here in from Nepal to Indonesia and Bali. So we needed someone who could deal with that and how we were going to operate in all those countries or be able to do transactions, and essentially in the end utilizing our head office in Hong Kong to make these transactions happen. And then went out and found and did our due diligence on a number of key merchants within the cryptocurrency area, and ended up with Coin Direct was who we went ahead with, and have been partnered with them since then.
So does Coin Direct decide which cryptocurrencies you accept, or was that a joint decision between the two of you? How did that work?
They accept over 35 different cryptocurrencies and growing. Every day they seem to be adding more currencies to it. So it was purely up to them. They had all the major players in there, the Bitcoins and etc. So that wasn't really an issue. They had enough of, but it was very much something we looked at. We wanted, there was a number of players that only accepted 3 or 4 currencies. We wanted to accept as wide range as possible, and Coin Direct was able to do that.
And how have you found the take up from your guests, Scott? Did it start slow and then build, or?
We had a lot of inquiries. It took probably about 4 weeks before we started to see any transactions come through. We have never seen any transactions on sites for the guest bill afterwards. It's been purely for reservations purposes and booking hotel accommodation, and so that's been the key part of it. But we didn't really expect people to be using crypto for their drinks and food and beverage and that sort of thing. We were looking at it that they would be taking those 14-night stays on a pool villa. Booking was where we see them booking and using their cryptocurrency.
And have you managed to ascertain whether there is a particular demographic who is using crypto to pay with you, or is it quite wide ranging?
No, it's wide ranging at the moment. There hasn't been a key demographic or even a nationality yet. It is a mix from Europeans, Asian, Russia. There's been a mix. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Erin, you mentioned that you're working with the Waldorf Astoria properties in Miami, which is also accepting crypto payments. How did that all come about, and how does that work?
So Waldorf Astoria is being developed by PMG. It's a very, very big developer between New York City and Miami. And they have been forging ahead in terms of how to differentiate themselves within all of these other new development projects in Miami. Right now, there's a huge trend to have branded residences. So the Waldorf Astoria, the Baccarat, the St. Regis, 11, which is actually a gentleman's club in Miami, actually has 2 towers also being developed by PMG. And Jake and Logan Paul just bought the 2 penthouses at 11, completely based on a meta reality experience. So kind of like a VR AR combination where we had Oculus, we walked through what the property will look like. It helps you kind of imagine what we're going to deliver in 4 to 5 years. So there are some people that really have that imagination, others that the meta reality experience is super helpful for them. And also in choosing things like finishes, do you want dark marble or light marble, etc. So PMG is not just doing the Waldorf Astoria, that was our first, but we're also doing 11 and a number of others that are coming down the lane, and not just using crypto, but using the metaverse and meta reality to really help drive sales forward and differentiate ourselves from the swarm of new developments in Miami.
Yeah. There's a question that's just come in from David Cooper, which is a good one, and I was going to ask a similar one. So crypto is obviously fairly volatile. The exchange rate and the value is fairly volatile. So do you actually receive payment for the units in crypto, or do you convert it back to dollars, or do you hold the crypto? Does a developer hold the crypto? How does that work?
So because we have to take an escrow payment, so we're taking 5, 10, 20%, depending on the stage of the project, and then holding that until close, that gets converted to a stable coin immediately. And then as soon as the transaction closes, because the developer needs to pay, its vendors, its contractors, all of that, we immediately convert to dollars so that then we can pay, basically everybody that goes into the project. on a personal level, would he hold it? Maybe, but because we need to pay those people out, you know, we have to convert to dollars immediately.
Yeah. And have they put any kind of limit on the number of units that they're willing to sell through crypto as it's so volatile, or could he potentially sell out the whole scheme that way?
Hypothetically, we could sell out the whole thing. I mean, with Waldorf Astoria, there's 333 units and 100 floors. So it's highly unlikely. Most of them have sold, I'd say, let's say 300 units have sold in dollars, 6 have sold in crypto, and then we have the remaining quantity still for sale. So it's been quite a few in the grand scheme of things, but still, I mean, the ratio of one to the other is extremely positioned towards dollars. Yeah.
And is it easier to discern a demographic group of people who are paying for real estate in crypto perhaps than it is in travel? Are you seeing a distinctive type of person doing this?
I mean, it kind of tends to skew along the lines of who we see, you know, the Bitcoin billionaires in the media. Tends to be a little bit younger, but not exclusive. As I mentioned before, Jake and Logan Paul, they each spent $20 million equivalent in crypto to buy those 2 penthouses. They are MMA fighters, and I'm not sure of any other like details around them, but I'd guess they're maybe 25, 30 years old. So definitely that type of genre.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. James, tell us a little bit about the way that the metaverse is being used to sell experiences in terms of whether it be travel or real estate. How has that opened up over the last few years, and what do you think the future holds in that respect?
Yeah, I mean, I find this really interesting what Erin's saying, because again, this is something that's existed for years. But I think there's this adoption, this critical mass now where people are hearing about it more in the press. People are going to CES, they're seeing it advertised. I remember, God, 10 years ago going to ITB, and you had the Marriott stand, and we had these kind of almost look like teleportation booths, and you'd put on an Oculus Rift and it would take you through a mini bar, and you would go on this track and you'd look left and you'd see the concierge, and you'd look right and you'd see a made bed. And it was phenomenally boring, but you had this queue that went all around the inside of ITB, whilst, you know, Starwood were handing out these CDs, you know, with PowerPoint presentations on them. And what Marriott were doing, which is really clever, was, you know, I actually remember we were standing at the Wyndham stand, they were giving away bottles of water. And from a marketing point of view, it was saying, look, you know, we're organic, we're fresh, we're clear, we're transparent. But Marriott was saying, look, we're the future. And this is early adoption. And in fact, instead of giving you a bottle of water that might be refreshing, we're going to give you a technology that's going to put you inside 4 walls, that's going to let you experience the Marriott property. So that was the first time that I actually saw a metaverse or a virtual extended reality being used to commercialize 4 walls. But it was really interesting what Erin was saying, because, you know, IKEA was the next to jump on this bandwagon when you started to dress your rooms with interior designs and their furniture through an augmented reality. And I always thought that the next step in property development beyond Matterport, and obviously everyone's reading about Matterport's recent IPO, is this idea that what Google were clicking onto when they made the Google Cardboard. So it's to say, look, we want to make this accessible for everyone by, you know, open source materials essentially made out of cardboard that you don't have to go and buy for $700 in a Virgin Megastores. You know, you can put these things on your head, they cost $2 each, and you can put a QR code on the side. And this is before the pandemic, when everyone, you know, was unaccustomed to QR codes and AR. But, you know, we were putting these virtual reality headsets and empowering people with them in these travel shows so that they can put their phones in them and they walk away with their own virtual reality extended reality catalog of that hotel. And I think what Erin is alluding to when we're talking about the ability to then customize that, change the color of the walls, build in your own furniture, and make it a bespoke part of yourself in an immersive reality, I think for property developers has to be that next step, because the current model isn't working. You know, when I go to shopping malls in Asia and they've got these matchstick built models, and they're selling an idea of a property before they've laid a brick, and they sell out every room in that property. I think that the only way that you can do this, or the better way of doing this, is to put people in that and make it bespoke and tailored towards them. And just to go back to your question, the metaverse is a funny one because we call it the metaverse, but I think it should be known as a metaverse. There is no singular metaverse. There is no defining link. And even with the NFTs that exist in each of these, there is no exchange that allows you to change NFTs or tokenized coupons in between different metaverses. So I think that's the way that it's going, is building out the exchange networks in between them, and really enhancing the kind of immersive element so that you can have virtual seminars, virtual meetings in virtual spaces.
Yeah, we'll move on to that later. Actually, the fact that there are numerous metaverses and new ones every day. So tell us a little bit about how this technology has translated specifically to what you do, James, and how hotels can provide what you need to allow potential guests to virtually experience the properties before booking.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. We had one question on our social media about a month ago that says this is never going to replace the holiday experience, and God forbid if it ever replaced the holiday. I'd hate to think of people on virtual reality glasses going swimming in Laguna in Phuket. I mean, it's just, what we're doing is we're enhancing that booking experience. So it's what Erin was alluding to and Scott was alluding to, that we put people in that space. And I think in a world where you can't bring people to the property so easily because of COVID and the pandemic and all the restrictions that ring-fence that, then what immersive realities do is it takes the property to the people. So I can experience that from my couch. And I think what this world has also taught us is that space is the new luxury. That where I am 20 meters away from the next water villa in the Maldives, and what VR and immersive reality does is really panders to that idea of space. I understand how I inherit that space before I've arrived. And I think that's where we're heading. And that's why we're on this kind of hockey stick uptake of VR and immersive reality at the moment, because it's been catalyzed by the pandemic, and companies like mine with disruptive front end and back end technologies, you're going to see them coming up quite a lot and all over the place. And I think, it's an answer to a problem that's posed itself.
And does your platform accept payments in crypto on behalf of your hotel clients?
Not yet. So at the moment we're in MVP territory. So we're doing a kind of minimal viable product that we're launching on June the 27th with about 100 hotels in the Indian Ocean, Southeast Asia. We are going into that area. So I am looking at having a payment gateway that is accepting cryptocurrencies, but not in the next three to 6 months.
Okay, thanks, James. Erin, how can the virtual world potentially enhance the value of an actual bricks and mortar property? So, say for example, you have a block of apartments that might have some commercial space and some office space on the ground floor. How can developers maximize the value of that by also using a virtual facsimile of that development?
Yeah, well, having a parcel in the metaverse that aligns with an actual real world parcel, at this time, I think the best opportunity there is for exposure, so that you're getting your brand in front of people from all over the world. And as agents during the pandemic, it was really the first time that we at scale sold property without anybody seeing it. And we were just doing it via FaceTime. And within the United States, it was mostly people from New York buying property in Florida, or from California buying property in Texas or Arizona. And, some of those people were then highly disappointed with the properties that they purchased because they never really touched or felt it, and they didn't have a true feel of scale because they're just looking at it on the little, phone FaceTime screen, not even, in a little square box. So I think going forward, having that exposure in the metaverse for just your brand name, for myself as an agent, for my brand, for nest seekers, et cetera, that gets you in front of the right eyes. And then taking it a step further and building something out, using James's technology, and similar to what we did with PMG, it really allows you to experience in a three-dimensional space. So that allows you to step into the world that you would then be living in the real world. So it's kind of multi-pronged. It's just getting that exposure in the metaverse, then experiencing the property before you're there, before it's built, and then finally you physically live in the property. So again, not a substitute, but a gateway.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Erin. Scott, have you looked into offering your guests a virtual show round, if you like, before they come to visit you?
Yes, it's something, and echoing what was said, is that I think it definitely adds value to either from the purchasing point of view for a villa, for a residence, whether it's here or obviously in Miami, to be able to put people within that, to feel it, to experience it, and then to be able to change it and personalize your experience within that property is going to be a fantastic tool. And of course, from the hotel experience, not only for the guests to come in and experience it, but for the travel agents, for travel agent training and that sort of thing, for them sitting in London or Berlin or somewhere and never been to Phuket or Thailand or Bali, to be able to walk through the property, see the room, see the different room types, and the views from each room type. It's going to be invaluable. So it is something that already our marketing team is looking at.
We should have a call after, Scott.
Yes, for sure.
You definitely should have a chat, you two. Okay, so before we move on to talk about NFTs and virtual real estate, which are the two areas that I haven't fully got my head around, Erin, I'd be interested to know your thoughts on how elements of the metaverse, such as blockchain technology and so on, can enhance and improve the transaction process between buyer and seller. How do you see that moving?
So the most difficult part of any real estate transaction, it's not the showings, it's not really even negotiating price. It's all of the steps on the back end that most buyers and sellers don't see. It's what we do as agents. It's what the title company has to take care of. It's making sure there are no liens on the property. It is working with surveyors and appraisers and all of those types of things. So generally what we do is try to shelter the buyer and seller from those kind of tedious elements. If we could have a property that truly fully lived on the blockchain from inception, or say from today, even if we can't get the history, and we can kind of start fresh, that process could be consolidated, and rather than having to involve title insurance and surveyors, et cetera, you already see all of that information. It's living and breathing in real time on a blockchain. So it would shortcut the closing process, all of the diligence, and I think would be extremely helpful for us. Now, the caveat is where I think the bottleneck is a lot of these elements exist within municipalities, and in general, municipalities are not first adopters, and they tend to be the slowest element. Dealing with even just a variance can take months. So that's where we're seeing a slowdown. We've had, I think, 2 worldwide transactions, both through a company called Proppy, that happened completely on the blockchain. One, I think, was in Ukraine, and then the other was in Florida. And they had to dual register everything, because right now the blockchain is not supported by those municipalities. So they had to do it the blockchain way, and also like the classic way, just to make sure everything got in fact recorded. So it's being tested, and I think we'll get there, but it's just so difficult, and I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but within the United States, you've got town, counties, states, you've got to register through everything, and that just takes a world of time.
But the logical conclusion could be that a lot of the intermediaries in the process could effectively be removed once the blockchain is adopted wholesale.
Exactly. I mean, the potential is huge. And I think what we'll start to do is exactly what Proppy did and start to dual record so that we start the process. And once people see how much more efficient it could be, then these entities would be more inspired to adopt.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Erin. James, the role of the potential role of blockchain in cutting out the middleman in various transactions. Where does that leave in the hospitality and travel space? Where does that leave travel agents and OTAs and the various people there if the technology becomes so widely adopted that operators and hotel brands are able to display what they're doing? What are the implications in the travel space?
Yeah, I think it's still a bit of an unknown. I think the decentralization of banks and the threat that NFTs pose and payment gateways taking cryptocurrencies. I think this is the problem that Erin is alluding to with getting municipal approval, is that it's still so unregulated that governments and authorities don't really know how to regulate it. They can't really keep up with the trend and the technology that's being offered around that. So it's I think it's a bit of an unknown. I think we're on a learning curve and we're all finding our feet with this. But the on the consumer side, I want to go back to this idea that away from the blockchain and more into the NFT side. But, I think there's huge benefits that we're starting to learn and see come through now in hospitality that are surrounded by loyalty programs. So how can you sell VIP experiences and how can we tokenize them as a non-fungible, and what that would offer to a reseller of packages and holidays like ourselves, and how that can be used from a consumer endpoint. There's huge value and benefits too. But in terms of blockchain payments, I think it's something that we're all learning, and someone like Scott is probably a lot more versed on, who's been taking blockchain payments for the last year or so. But I can see NFT really shaping the landscape of loyalty programs in hospitality, and how we use that to exchange people's time, not just in the travel process, but also in the pre-booking process. If you could gamify people to stay on a hotel or hospitality platform for long enough, you could accrue loyalty points as part of that pre-booking phase. You could then exchange into a booking phase later on to sell or use accrue VIP experiences. Yeah, okay. Well, let's talk a bit more about NFTs, because I have to say this is where my understanding stretches a little thin. I have seen the likes of Marriott and Ascot, who we mentioned earlier, incorporating NFT digital artworks as part of a loyalty program, and I can kind of see the value of that. What I don't quite understand, what I actually don't understand at all, is why people are paying millions and millions of dollars for certain NFT artworks, which, I don't know. Can somebody explain that to me? I'm not saying that very eloquently, but I don't understand why people are paying huge amounts of money for something that, to me, I can't understand what its actual value is. It's a scarcity mindset, isn't it? It's why is a penny farthing stamp worth $1 million? It's worth what someone is willing to pay for it as a collectible, and that's what an NFT is. It's essentially something that is a one-off, unique stamped collection with a unique code ascribed to it that no one else can have or buy. So I think the kind of question roots back to those kind of blurred lines between people that collect phone cards, people that collect stamps, people that collect initial or first off comic versions of superheroes. Well, it's as valuable as someone's willing to pay for it as a one-off item, in my really limited view. Yeah. Okay. So what are some, away from this astronomical level of these NFTs that are making the headlines, how do you see them working effectively to bolster a loyalty program, James, for a hotel group? Yeah, I mean, in many ways, and again, steep learning curve here. But I think that you know, the hospitality sector, Liverpool Football Club has already tried to hook onto this, where they had NFT cards made of their top 5 players, and they then auction them off. The problem is that NFT by its very nature is something that shouldn't or doesn't want to be commercialized. It's the kind of breakaway of the centralized system and going towards a decentralized system. So the second you try to commercialize something that's decentralized, it's an oxymoron. And you have it kind of, I think there's another one, Jack Dorsey's tweet that they tried to sell recently went for $284, but was bought for $3 million. So I think we're all kind of, you know, walking around a bit blind with this, but we know that there is going to be value that's subscribed to tangible things within a kind of blockchain mentality. And again, you know, I remember sitting down about 6 months ago and trying to work out the difference between a limited, non-transferable exclusive license and an NFT. And you kind of get into murky grounds because they're quite similar things, but one is, again, is a tokenized collectible. One is, you know, an IP distribution law that surrounds content or distribution of that content and the copyright that's ascribed to it. So it's, again, these are tenets of things that have already existed, and people are seeing what's happened to cryptocurrency. And I think we're trying to see how that can ascribe value in the real world and the extended world that offers these items. But again, I think we're learning and looking for that singularity, that a metaverse to come together with all these different components to see how it really works. And I believe that we're at the tip of the iceberg at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, James. Erin, do you see potential for NFTs to be used as kind of brand extensions and marketing tools in real estate sales?
I think not quite yet. I feel like my, wish would be for what we previously discussed, an NFT holding all of the chain of title for a property. I think that would be more effective in the real estate world, but I think that we don't know exactly how we're going to use NFTs. We're all still exploring it. And in terms of how real estate exists, in the virtual world, I think, there's a lot more that we can do. We're just kind of tiptoeing in. So that's a question I just don't know the answer to.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on and talk about buying and selling virtual real estate in the metaverse. Because it's my understanding that not only can you buy and sell virtual real estate, you can get a mortgage on it, and a lot of the functions of the real world are there in the virtual world. Can you tell us how that process works, and then I'll ask you some of the questions I have about it.
Sure. So similar to the real world, you have more and less desirable areas of the metaverse. And as we mentioned before, it's a metaverse because you have Decentraland and Sandbox and all of these other options. Yeah. The amount of space that you need. So I'm working with a client right now where we're purchasing land in the metaverse, and it needs to be an event space. So, bandwidth or size is similar to a size of a plot of land. Is it 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, et cetera. And now where I think that it differs from the real world is the visibility aspect. If you're creating a event space where you're going to gather your followers and whomever wants to attend this concert, those people are going to go directly there. To me, I don't see the necessity to pay an exorbitant amount to have that space next to Paris Hilton's or Snoop Dogg's or whomever's, because you're entering the metaverse and you're going directly to this concert. You're not necessarily walking along the streets or taking a drive to get there. So I think that's something mentally where I don't see the need to overpay, because metaverse space is actually very expensive right now. For a basic house, you're paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for that plot of land. That does not necessarily include the build out of anything. That's just to hold on to this plot of land. So I do think that we might be a bit overpriced at this point in the metaverse. And I think that we need to see which one, or which couple of these multiple metaverse are really the ones that are going to shake out and be the long-standing institutions, because to spend that much money to then have that metaverse simply disappear it's an issue.
And here's the thing: the original reason for investing in land, as Mark Twain famously said, was because they're not making it anymore. But that doesn't really apply in the metaverse, when, as you say, one metaverse could disappear overnight and 10 more could spring up the next day. So how does the valuation process of this real estate work? It seems to me quite a tenuous concept.
Yeah, I think because it's novelty right now, and it's similar to the bidding up of these NFTs and the Bored Ape and all of these. I think that there's a little bit of speculation going on at this point. My personal opinion is that it's going to be commoditized, and we're going to, just like you can put a website up for $15 now, eventually that's where the metaverse will be, because you can continue to expand it. It doesn't really have an end. So I think that it's important to be in the game and to understand, but I don't think that it's something that you need to land grab right now and play the long game.
Yeah. Okay. I have to say, I had a look at some images of Decentraland and the Sandbox and some of the other main platforms as a bit of research for this, prompted by stories that some of these huge blue chip companies, massive retailers are spending a lot of money for space on these platforms. And I was shocked at how fairly basic the graphics were. It wasn't quite the all singing, all dancing experience I was expecting, I have to admit. How long is it going to take these platforms to catch up with the kind of simulation and reality that we're getting on some other areas? James, do you want to pick that one up?
God, yes. How long's a piece of string? We're at the current rate of development of kind of UI and UX within gaming technologies, I think quite fast, because these spaces are so vast and massive. I guess the compromise on on the actual renderings and objects within those spaces is the essential sacrifice that you're talking about. But I think it's really interesting, because this whole thing of NFTs, and going back to 2005, there was that website called the $1 Million website that was set up by a UK student to raise money for his education, and he was selling pixels. And because there was a finite amount of pixels within one resoluted website, he ended up having a valuation ascribed to each of those pixels based on the demand. It was supply and demand that he was getting from local merchants. But what Erin is saying, which is really interesting, is that, well, how can you ascribe value to something in an infinite space that is constantly being built on? It's very interesting, and it's something, again, I think we're all learning, trying to understand at the moment. The NFT space is a very murky area. The metaverse, or a metaverse, again, I was as surprised as you were, Eric, when I saw some of these games, and I think they're more focused on, when you talk about kind of function over form, it's more about the immersive feel and nature of actually being in that game, and the usability of being able to walk around. We went to a bar in London where we were looking at doing a launch party, where you go into pods, and again, your time is valued, and the longer you spend, the more loyalty points you can then exchange for drinks in the bar outside. But you're with a bunch of friends, and you're in this world, and you're moving around, interacting with each other. It made me dizzy after 35 minutes. And when you've had a bit to drink, it can make you probably dizzier a lot quicker. But it was really fun. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It was the whole interaction. I was focusing less on the rendering and the graphics of the world that I was inhabiting, and more on the usability and the playability and the way that I was interacting outside of the real world with people that I probably didn't interact with the same way in the real world. God, how horrible does that sound? But yeah, it's a different dimension and a different way of, you know, perceiving a extended reality. Yeah. But I think it will become, I think the graphics will get better, and I think it will, you know, we're talking, you know, probably a couple of years or less.
Yeah. Until then, it's for fans of retro games, maybe. As expected, we've got loads of questions and some good ones here. So let's make a start with these. First is from Daniel Ellis, who says, do you have any concerns about the environmental impact of blockchains, particularly the growing energy consumption associated with them? Scott, is this something that you've considered?
I think, yeah, as a hotel group, you know, we're looking at everything that we do at the properties, whether it's single-use plastics and removing those from usage within our hotels and resorts, to the chemicals we use in gardens and that sort of thing. And of course, this is going to become a problem. It is all new to us, as we've said, and things are changing so fast. But the environmental impact for any group and corporation is something that they want to reduce. So yes, for sure, it's going to be something that has to be considered.
How is the environmental impact of crypto and blockchains? How can it be reduced, James? Have you got an opinion on that? Because I know this is one of the reasons why Elon Musk, I think, got involved, and that had seismic implications across the price of some of these values. But this was the concern that he brought up.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, on mining the actual cryptocurrency itself, and I guess the emissions that creates. Not an area that I've dived too deeply into myself. But yeah, I was reading about his concerns in the news, but I personally don't know how you can mitigate the environmental impacts of blockchain mining myself.
Okay. Erin, we've got a question here from Kate Maiolini. Hi, Kate. Glad you're on today. And she is asking, how do you manage the taxation system around crypto transactions?
So it is really an individual responsibility. We collect in crypto, we convert into dollars, and that ultimate beneficiary of those dollars, they need to, you know, report exactly how much they made. So if they are selling your crypto, you have a responsibility to tell the IRS that you sold your crypto and you made this many dollars. So it's not something I track as an agent. It really is, you know, independent, individual responsibility. I am assuming that you're going to do the right thing.
Yeah, okay. David Cooper says, as a leisure and real estate developer in the UK and Asia, where investors are worldwide, the blockchain digital coin / token concept of ownership is of interest. When is it expected this concept will be fully recognized? James, would you like to pick up on that one?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's an open-ended question. I think we're understanding, we're at the kind of start of that early adoption. I think we're trying to ascertain ways that we can apply these technologies to existing components. I'm not entirely sure when that's going to be completely realized. Again, what we're really focusing on right now and what we have in front of us is this extended reality and how we can move through that in a metaverse environment to sell potential holidays and packages around that. For the blockchain side of things, yeah, I don't know when it's going to be fully realized. I think that a lot of people are saying that, you know, you've scratched the tip of the iceberg on some of these crazy valuations that are coming out. But for me, on the NFT side, I think that it's going to manifest itself incredibly in the next 5 to 10 years within, again, in the hospitality sector, loyalty programs, tokenizing VIP experiences, and also using this kind of culture of celebrity to use celebrities to, you know, essentially tokenize an experience or have an NFT image of themselves in a destination that you might have an experience in, or want to have an experience in. So I think there's many ways that NFT can be attached to this. I don't know when it will be realized. I can't see, you know, the potential end of this, but I think we're in something that's morphing and changing almost weekly at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, James. Erin, we've got a question from Richard Majewski. Hi, Richard. He asks if there can be conflicts in the metaverse, such as land grabs and so on. How are these metaverses regulated, and are they all different?
Well, they're not super regulated. So, you know, anything can happen. Ideally, there are no land grabs because we, you know, are basing everything on the blockchain. So like that is the goal, is that once you own a property, you own the property, and you can see that chain of title. I think we're still too new to say, no, there's never going to be a land grab. I mean, obviously there's been a couple of situations as of late where there has been hacks and people's, you know, Ethereum has been stolen, and these are things that we said could never happen. So I think before we say never, we need to really cross our T's and dot our I's. But the goal is that no, there would not be land grabs, but we need to make sure we can really truly say that.
Do you think we are inevitably going to get to a stage where the government will see how fast all this is growing and will impose regulations, which kind of goes against the very nature of the thing? But do you think that will happen?
I mean, you now see the major banks, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, et cetera, they're all getting into crypto. They started a couple of years ago, and we said that that would never happen. So that is a form of regulating what was supposed to never be regulated, and moving the needle, you know, in institutional ways versus individual peer-to-peer. So anytime there's an opportunity to make money, government will get involved somehow.
Yeah. So let's finish up by asking the three of you in turn what you think the implications of all these various strands of the metaverse we've been talking about will be on your businesses over the next 5 years, and how you think your businesses will look differently in 5 years' time as a result. Scott, would you like to kick off? Obviously, you were pioneers in terms of accepting crypto payments. How much do you think all these various strands we've been talking about today are going to affect you going forward?
Well, we like some of we've mentioned, is that NFTs is something, yes, we're sitting back, we're watching a little bit at the moment how that's going. We do see some opportunities there, and I think it's going to evolve very quickly over the next year or so, and obviously the next 5 years, and we could see opportunities for the hospitality industry, for hotels, for rewards programs, that sort of thing. We definitely can see that happening. And cryptocurrency is only going to continue to be more and more accepted, and so we're going to see more and more transactions over the next 5 years.
Yeah. This might sound like a naive question, but how do you actually create an NFT? If you were going to, for example, introduce NFTs as part of a rewards program across your hotel portfolio, how does one go about doing that? Because I don't know.
I'm not the person to ask on that. My marketing and our IT team have been looking into that, but you know, to looking at selling an experience, or an ongoing experience, or continuous reward with the discount or benefits is one way we're looking at utilizing it.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Erin, how do you think all these topics are going to affect your business, and where will you be 5 years from now?
So I don't see people stopping using cash and traditional mortgages, but I see this as an evolving option in terms of cryptocurrency, and I see more people making purchases using crypto. As I mentioned before, I hope that we can find some way to find a chain of title through blockchain or simplify that process and kind of cut out the middlemen, which is also beneficial to the end user because it's less closing costs and that type of thing. So I'm hoping that consolidates. And I think that we're going to start to double expose properties on whatever that evolving metaverse is, whichever one or two or three make the final cut. And that'll help us market those properties and really get international exposure and true experiences of those properties for potential buyers.
Yeah. So do you think you could be at the stage where you'll sell somebody an apartment, for example, and they'll be choosing all the fixtures and fittings, and you'll say, do you want to buy the virtual version as well? And is there a case where somebody else might own their virtual apartment?
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, the virtual version would be sold along with the real property version, because then when that buyer goes to sell a few years down the line, they already have the rights to it. You know, their agent can then update it similarly to how they updated the property, and then again use it to market the property. So it's like real world Zillow.
Yeah, but if it's an extra 70,000, some might pass. So
True.
we'll see on that one. Okay, James, would you like to finish off and give us your projections for what's going to come down the line?
Sure. So, I mean, for us, we're looking at building out new ways, you know, not just of booking the holiday and going into that kind of searching phase, but, you know, looking at it as a holistic part of a whole, whereby, you know, your customer support could be in virtual reality as well. So we've worked quite closely with DMCs and wholesalers in the Indian Ocean, where they've used our virtual reality tours in webinars to do virtual fam trips during COVID. And what they saw is that there was a lot more engagement because people were sticking on the webinars for longer, and the bounce rates were much lower. So I guess the next version of that is to say, well, look, we're all used and accustomed to Zoom now in this virtual world, that you could actually use this as part of an upsell mechanism. You know, I could be on the phone as part of a customer support agent. I could have a client on the end of the phone, and I could walk them through in virtual reality through a screen share on Zoom, the upsell on that room that I wanted to sell them, similar to probably what Erin is building out in her customer support landscape. But then I think, you know, the other side of that is we're also looking at, I guess Oculus is now creating this idea where you can be in a virtual meeting room. So you could actually put on the glasses, and if you wanted to go into, you know, gyroscopic VR or stereoscopic VR, sorry, in a virtual headset, you could be in the room where, you know, you're being projected, where the cell is projecting you. And in line with that, I think also this idea of website 2.0 and building out websites that are just immersive websites. The whole website is a virtual tour for a hotel where you don't have home about us, but it's an intuitive learning curve as you're walking through the hotel with pop-up info buttons that you can also gamify through the use of that website. So I think that is coming. That's what we're looking to build out in the kind of B2B landscape. And I'm hoping that that's the way the world's going, but I'm also hoping quietly that it's not going to completely replace the holiday experience, just the booking part.
Amen. Amen. Well, thanks everybody. It's been fascinating. I've definitely learned a lot. I've still also got a lot of questions, but you know, we're in such a fast moving and fast evolving space. But I think that was a great session. So thank you very much. We're going to show a few slides now, and we're also going to leave the session open for a couple of minutes at the end because there's an awful lot going on in the chat. There's been a lot of interaction going on there. So we'll leave that open for a couple of minutes at the end. So if you need to take any notes or get any info from there, you can. The next Urban Living webinar is on Wednesday, June the 1st, and it's about the hospitality transaction market. And in this case, we are talking about bricks and mortar. You can register for that using the link in the chat or the QR code that you can see on the screen there. Next week is the first of our Urban Living Insights series of half-day in-person events, and this one is about serviced apartments. It's taken place from 8:30 to 11:45 in London on Tuesday next week. And again, the link is in the chat, or you can use the QR code there. Just a brief mention for a new editorial website that we launched a couple of weeks ago called Urban Living News. It's focusing on the evolving urban development sector and how there is so much convergence between various asset classes. The web address is urbanliving.news. And if you've got a story that you want us to tell, then you can see my email address on there. Please do drop me a line. If you're interested in sponsoring any of our webinars or our live events, please do get in touch with Katie. You can see her details on screen and also in the chat. And thanks for watching, everybody. I think it was a great session. I hope you enjoyed it. Give us a follow on the social channels you can see there. And enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thanks to Flywire and Charles Hope for sponsoring, and hopefully see you on our next session. Thanks very much, everybody. Goodbye.